This is Secret Mom Hacks, episode number 54. My name is Krista, and I am your host. It's February 14th, 2024, so happy Valentine's Day, however you celebrate it. I am sending hugs from my little corner of the world and wishing you all the love and happiness because you deserve it, Mama. Since today is all about celebrating love, I'm really excited to bring you a conversation focused on mental health and self care in today's interview with Alessandra Torresani, or Al for short. She is the host of Emotional Support, a funny and revealing podcast about mental health. She's an actress known for her roles as Claire in The Big Bang Theory and Zoe Greystone in the sci-fi TV series Caprica. But the reason she's on Secret Mom Hacks is because she landed the most important lead role she'll ever have, and that is mom to a precious little girl. Al has been open about her journey with bipolar disorder, and her goal, in her words, is to bring the mental health conversation to the surface and create a safe place to share our stories. She is doing just that with her podcast, which I highly recommend you go check out. Before we dive into our chat, I just want to say thanks for tuning in, Mama. I started this podcast because babies don't come with instructions. As of this recording, I am chasing around a 5-year-old that no amount of Googling, mom groups, or books were able to prepare me for. There's a lot of stuff people don't talk about when it comes to pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, and postpartum. And as someone who was previously terrified of all of the above, I'm here to help you pull back the curtain on all of it. And every now and then, it may get a little messy. We may share a little TMI, but that's why you're here, right? My goal is you'll leave every episode feeling refreshed, inspired, and hopeful, knowing you are not on this mom journey alone. Now, there's a lot of subject matter to cover when it comes to mom life, and we are covering it all. So let's dive into my conversation with Al, host of Emotional Support.
You can call me Al. That's super easy. It's emotional support,
okay.
so super easy with Al.
I love it. Okay. Well, Al, we're going to jump right in to our conversation. First, you have one little one, right?
Yes.
Just one.
Yes, just
Okay.
one.
Just one. Me too.
Yeah.
Mom of a little girl as well.
Yeah.
Tell us whatever you care to share about your baby girl so far, and however much or little too you would like to share about her birth story.
Oh my gosh. Well, her birth story is a very long one, and I wouldn't want to bore the audience, but it was lots of fun. All I can say is it started with me getting a manicure while having full contractions. And then it continued on to me convinced that I was going to do a natural birth with no medication. And then I got, I think, 8 centimeters dilated, or I think it was 8 or 9. And after 17 hours of labor, they finally said to me, "Ma'am, you're about to faint, and we're going to have to put you under and have to do a C-section if you don't take the medication, because you will not be able to survive going through with this birth," which I was very happy that I then did take the medication. I got an epidural. And the reason why I'm happy about that is because afterwards I had quite a lot of complications with bleeding. And I almost had to have a blood transfusion and all this stuff. So I was very lucky that I did have the medication, because these were things that I wouldn't have been able to get in the moment when emergencies happen. So the one thing that I learned about my birth story was you have to let go and go with the flow, and whatever is meant to be is meant to be. And you cannot question your decisions. You just go for it and just own your birth story and be proud of what it was. And there were a lot of complications after in the next couple weeks, but all I can say is I have a very healthy girl who is beautiful and smart and hilarious and powerful and full of just a bright light. And I am so blessed every day that I am able to share these moments with her. And she is now 15 months old, or tomorrow she'll be 15 months. and she's my best friend, and she is wild and crazy and a Gemini just like her mom.
So sweet. I love that. She is precious. Of
Thank
course,
you.
I've been bouncing over into your Instagram and I saw several photos of her and she is just stunning. Just
Thank
so
you.
sweet.
And it's so funny because I was that mom that was like, I'm never showing her face. I'm not doing this. Like, she's going to be private, like all this stuff. But honestly, she is such a personality and she craves being in front of a camera. It's crazy. And I'm just like, she likes it and it's fun. And like, I want people, I'm an open book. And, there's going to be a point where I'm sure she's not going to want to do that anymore and want to, do little fun excursions. But I just wanted people to see like, this is a little bit of my life and this is what we do. And if I can help another mom or parent out with something that we might be doing, some excursion or some toy that we like or some stroller that we're, using, I just want to help out.
Absolutely. So let's jump into some more questions.
Sure.
You have been open about your journey with living with bipolar disorder. So can
Yes.
you share some insights into how you first recognized your condition and the steps that you took to seek help and
Sure.
treatment?
Sure. It actually came when symptoms and signs were showing up starting when I was about 2 years old. And my mom was not quite sure what it was, thought it was the terrible twos that everyone says. And she's like, I don't think my daughter's terrible, but she's hitting her head against the wall. Like something's wrong. When I was 5, I couldn't cross thresholds from one door to the next. Certain things were coming up when I was 15, I was diagnosed. They thought she's hormonal and just depressed, so they put me on which actually made my highs higher and lows lower. I wasn't properly diagnosed with bipolar disorder till I was about 22 years old, and I have been thriving ever since, I say, because it was a long journey, something that a lot of people don't know because they're unfamiliar with bipolar disorder. And it's not a new diagnosis, but it's a quite a popular one now, is that it is one of the hardest mental illnesses to diagnose. So people are misdiagnosed for years. I can't remember what the exact statistic is, but it's either 5 or 7 years before you can be properly diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that's really scary because, like I said, if you're put on the wrong medication, it creates suicidal ideations. People may not be suicidal, and these things happen. And so it's a very scary time because it affects your hormones and whatnot. And so that's why I like to preach to whatever show I'm on. If you live with a mental illness or you think that something's wrong or you're having weird thoughts, write everything down, whether it be the best days that you're having or the worst days you're having, because it's easier for specialists to diagnose you when they see the wide range of emotions and not just going in saying, I'm depressed, right? Because that's when you go to a doctor when you're not feeling well. But when you're feeling great, why would you tell a doctor, like, I'm feeling great? Well, that could be a sign of mania, that you're excessively shopping, excessively spending, you know, going out, having sex addictions, drinking a lot, but having fun, right? So it was a long journey at 22 to finally figure it out, and it was actually through an acupuncturist who had, seen my symptoms, and he said, I have a lot of people who live with bipolar disorder. I think you should go to a doctor and ask specifically about that. And I had gone to a new psychiatrist and he said, yeah, that's what it is. So it's still a journey every day. And I'm currently not on medication because I'm breastfeeding. And I made that choice to get off my medicine while I was pregnant and breastfeeding. And then we'll go back on and reassess. But yeah, I mean, that's a long story that I tried to wrap up really fast, but I just would love your audience to know, if you're feeling anything, write it down, highs and lows, because that can help so much with diagnosis and with the help.
Well, and I think many people may not, and again, unless you are experiencing it, I would imagine it's difficult to fully understand
Totally.
bipolar disorder. So, could you provide just, and I know you did just a little
Sure.
bit, I mean, with the highs and lows, but just kind of an overview of what it entails and any challenges that it can
Sure.
pose kind of day to day.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it all stems a lot from perfectionism. That was a lot of my problem is if things didn't go perfectly and there wasn't a structure and things were out of order, or if my sleep was off, that's a huge thing for bipolar disorder, is insomnia. You catch yourself being able to stay up at all hours of the night and not needing sleep when you really do need the sleep. So I would stay up for 3 days on end and like nothing was wrong. For me, I never. I was such a control freak that I never got into drugs or alcohol. But a lot of people who live with bipolar disorder have addiction issues, but for me myself, that wasn't one of my problems. One of my problem was the perfectionism. It was the staying up of all hours. It was rage, it was anger. It was, feeling great and like you're on top of the world one day and then the next just crashing and not being able to leave the bed for 24 hours and then immediately feeling great again. So everyone that there's bipolar 1, bipolar 2, I think there's a bipolar 3 now. There's different ranges to the spectrum. So not everyone will have the same feeling, but it's definitely the highs of feeling really high and the lows of feeling really low. And it's a very weird, it seems like a very broad thing for me to say, but those who live with bipolar disorder who may feel like that, they'll be like, "Oh, I know that feeling where you're just constantly swinging in the moods, constantly." So, yeah, I hope that helped.
Thank you for that insight. So now let's kind of blend some
Yeah,
of this a little bit, managing mental health, which mental health is so hugely important to me. And we talk a lot about it on this podcast just because, especially as moms, it can be so hard to take care of somebody else if you're not
sure.
taking care of yourself. I have struggled with an anxiety disorder, and then I went through this divorce when my daughter was only 6 months old.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, so trying to figure out raising this little human and breastfeeding and all this, meanwhile, my world, like, shattered. And it's okay, I wouldn't change a thing, quite honestly. I would do it all over again to know everything that I was missing out on and what I have now. I had no idea what was waiting for me on the other side of all this, and it's beautiful and great, but that self-care is it's so important, and just taking care of your mental health. So that's why I've been so excited to have you on here because I
Yeah,
know I just want to feature so many facets of the mental health world as I
yeah.
can so that moms don't feel alone because it can be really isolating.
Oh my gosh,
So,
it's the most isolating, and I will tell you, I have a very supportive family, who's always around. My mom's my best friend. My husband was very supportive, but I truly never felt so alone as I did right after I gave birth, even though I had friends delivering food and stuff, because it's this new normal, right? And you're like, who am I? What's going on? I'm never going to sleep again. Like, she's constantly on the boob. Am I ever going to be able to feel anything again? Am I going to want to take care of myself? There's so many factors, and I feel like there were definitely strains in my marriage because that's a whole new normal of figuring things out. And look, I have a very cool husband that's like, "Look, I'm not trying to pressure you to do anything that you don't wanna do. If you need to take time," whatever it may be. Like, I was like I had a really cool husband that was fine with it, but there were totally moments where I was like, "What would be my life if I didn't stay in this marriage?" I mean, I never had those thoughts before, but it was like, and then when you talk to other people, they're like, "No, everyone says that." Like, everyone talks about that because the first year is so you are just not yourself. You're a shell of a human. And so you think of like every possible scenario that could go wrong and like where you would go in your life. So like, can I ask you a question? Like real like I know it's not
sure.
but like when you say you were going through your divorce at 6 months, like did people try to stop you and say, this happened to a friend of mine, that's why I'm really curious, like, where people tried to stop her and they were like, "No, just, like, wait till, like, a year into your marriage, like, a year postpartum to, like, go through with it." And you hear that all the time. And so many women come on my podcast and they're like, oh, yeah, everyone always said, like, wait a year, wait a year, wait a year. What for you was the decision of like, no, I know. Like, without being too personal, sorry. Like, I didn't mean to like get into it, but
Sure.
like,
No, it's fine. It's fine because I truly am an open book about this, quite honestly, and I haven't shared my full
oh, well,
story in my
then
podcast yet,
don't.
but it's coming.
Yeah.
No, it's coming. No, well, and I did an interview a couple days ago where we were just talking about my birth story and who was in the room and all of that. It was like, oh, my daughter's father was in there. He's my ex-husband now. And so I have shared just a little bit
Sure.
about that, but I intend to really open up
Still.
the pages when I do this one particular episode. But when she was 3 months old, I got a call from a detective, essentially. And so without
Okay.
sharing
Don't
too
share the
much further
story.
info there,
That is enough
yeah,
of a dot 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 for people to tune in.
tune in later.
Okay, so that
But
makes
yeah,
sense.
it
So
got to
that's
the
why.
point where
It wasn't like, oh my God,
and
like I just was emotionally like detached and I was like a shell of a human. It was like things were happening. Like, right, gotcha.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, things were happening, and let's just say, yeah, so when she was about 6 months old, I was like, I've gotta file for divorce.
Sure.
This is irrecoverable,
Right. This
and
wasn't the
yeah.
normal like mom. That's why I asked because like I was so many people when you struggle with marriage, when you struggle, I've like questioned my career, I've questioned my podcast, I've questioned literally everything. Um everything in my life, like where I'm living, like the state I'm in, like the emotional state I'm in, not the state of California, like the emotional state I'm in. Everything where everyone's like, no, you have to wait a whole year. And this happened to a friend of mine, and she waited a year, and she was like, I can't believe that I ever wanted to divorce my husband. Like he was so great. You know what I mean? And it was that
Yeah.
moment. But in the time, it was like, we are over, it's done, blah, 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 blah. We're like, okay, calm down. Like it's okay. And
Yes.
and and I've felt that way too, to be fair. So that's why I'm always so curious when I hear moms that do file divorce or do leave their husbands within the first year of postpartum. Like, what was the the trick? Like, did people stop you? So that's all you need to say. And I can't wait to listen to your whole episode. So that's a good like dot dot dot. I hope people really get into that one. So
Interesting little teaser
yes.
there.
Real quick, this is Krista. I'm just going to interrupt this fabulous conversation with Al to share. Our interview was recorded back in late 2023. And at the time this episode is being released, it's February 14th, 2024. And I do want to let you all know I have since shared my divorce story on Secret Mom Hacks, so you can go back and get all the details if you check out episode 41. I've also recently done an episode about dating as a single mom. That's episode 52. So to get all the details about what we're touching on here, just talking about navigating divorce while raising a 6-month-old, go check out episode 41 for my divorce story. And then also episode 52, dating as a single mom. Okay, and now back into the chat with Al.
So I'm not sure what the question was for me because I forget everything. So because
No, all good,
mom
all
brain.
good. Well, we were just starting to blend the topics of mental health
Yes.
and motherhood. So just talking in general terms that managing mental health can be challenging, particularly for new mothers. So how did you approach mental health during pregnancy and then after giving birth? And what strategies did you find most helpful?
It was a lot of trial and error. I I did this thing called hip when I gave birth, and I took a course, and it was hypnosis, and they had these affirmations that you were given, and these like a woman would share like say these affirmations, and it was like a 10-minute like almost meditation, if you will. And I'm a big meditator, but I haven't been able to really, I would say, properly meditate since giving birth. It's been very hard for me to kind of get back into that state, and not because of just like the obvious of the chaos of the baby. It's kind of like I'm trying to figure out like who am I now and like what works for me again, and like does that work for my brain, which I'm finding it does work for my brain, so I'm getting back into it. But in the moment, I would say the first year I would listen to these affirmations that helped with my birth, which is crazy because I'm like, I gave birth, it's done. But it was almost like a sense of pattern that I had already gone through. So I would say, a spoken meditation or like a song or something or a prayer, really like listening to someone else share it was really something that was able to calm me down. It was funny when we were coming back from the hospital the first time we were driving Lady home, that's my daughter. She was screaming and crying and I was like, "What do I do?" And I put the meditation on of the hypnosis for the hypnobirthing that I listened to while I was giving birth, and she was quiet. And it literally worked for the first 3 months, where anytime we played it, she would relax. And it was like, whoa, like she really could hear it in the womb and she heard it outside of the womb. So that helped me a lot. I would also say, you can't really find space to be quiet ever with a baby. But if you could take even a 5-minute shower, I know that sounds wild, and really just take that moment for self care. I mean, I don't have any self care practices other than a bath or a shower because that's about as crazy as it gets in this household, where I take those moments. But if you can just breathe, I've been teaching Lady how to, the importance of breath work and breathing, and we do it in our music class. And so she's been copying the music teacher now. So out of nowhere, she'll just be like, ah, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like you're self regulating and I didn't even ask you to do it. And so she reminds me, take a deep breath, like the importance of like 3 deep breaths can really just change your entire nervous system. And that can help with your day. And I know that sounds like woo woo and crazy, but it truly can. So it's like finding seconds in your day that can really take a moment and just breathe, and it can help everything for your self-care and for your mindfulness.
It's so good because how often do we just walk around of like we're just so stiff and like
Yeah.
trying to get on to the next thing and holding our breaths, just moving fast and anxious or whatever. And it's so true. If you just stop for a minute, even just one big old deep breath, but
Yes.
3, yes.
And you know
I
what?
would
And
imagine that would just
also,
reset your
if
day.
you can teach your child to like take deep breaths, if you can teach your child, like, oh my gosh, let's sit here and let's do something really fun. And like, whether you know anything about yoga or not, you just sit there and you just be like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's stretch our body. You know what I mean? And if you start implementing that to them, they're going to think it's cool, right? Because kids copy you, kids imitate you. They think whatever you do is cool. So, whatever you need for yourself, if that means you need 5 minutes of meditation, every day start teaching your kid how cool this is, how exciting this is. Let's sit, let's listen to this peaceful music, let's take deep breaths. Ooh, let's stretch our body. And like they're gonna want to do it. And then you have that 5 minutes that you've been looking for. I just came up with this. I think it's brilliant.
It is
Let's do
brilliant.
it.
Well,
Let's all
and
do it.
you're modeling, yes, you're modeling that healthy behavior
Yeah.
for them so
Yeah.
that when they are mothers, and hopefully well before then,
Sure.
but that they're taking a moment to just,
For
when life is
themselves.
crazy, to just stop and breathe, because that's not something I was doing when I was a teenager or even
No.
a younger
No.
adult. It's truly been becoming a mom. That is what has forced me to really focus on self-care,
Yeah.
because now we have somebody relying on us
100%.
pre-pregnancy, pre-babies. It's like, oh, I'll get over it. I'll deal with it. Whatever I'm going through, I'm in my little funk, but I don't have another human that's looking to me
Yes. Yes.
for that needs me for every little thing. And
Exactly.
truly, so becoming a mom, I feel like forces you to take the deep breaths,
Take it
find
deep.
those moments of
Take those
self-care.
moments. And
Yes.
seconds. And sometimes you just seconds are all you need, truly. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, let's take a quick break. Hey, Secret Mom hackers. Are you a budget savvy family looking for a financial tool that can help you take control of your spending and savings? Well, I've got something fantastic to share with you. Cube Money. Cube Money is the ultimate budgeting solution that's tailor-made for families who want to manage their money with ease and precision. Here's why our family loves it. It's just like the envelope system we all know, but digitized. Imagine the simplicity of old school envelope budgeting, but with a modern twist. Cube Money digitizes the envelope system, allowing you to allocate funds to specific spending categories right from your smartphone. It's like having a set of virtual envelopes for groceries, entertainment, and more, all in one app. The whole family benefits. Cube Money isn't just for individuals. It's designed to accommodate the needs of your entire family. You can set up sub-accounts for your spouse and kids, helping everyone stay on the same financial page. It's a powerful tool for teaching financial responsibility to your children. Stress-free savings. Planning for the future is a breeze with Cube Money. You can easily allocate funds for savings goals, whether it's a family vacation, a new home, or an emergency fund. It's all about turning your financial dreams into reality. So if you're ready to simplify your family's budgeting, track your spending with precision, and achieve your financial goals, give Cube Money a try. Visit their website at Cube Money to learn more. That's QUBE money.com to learn more and use the discount code SECRETMOMHACKS, all one word, SECRETMOMHACKS, to get 2 months of their premium or family plans for free. Cube Money, on a mission to see you live more and worry less. Try Cube Money today. Now back to the show.
Well, Al, let's talk about your podcast
Yeah.
because I definitely want the listeners to know you have a podcast called Emotional Support,
Mhm.
which is all about breaking the stigma surrounding mental health. So, how do you believe open conversations and awareness can benefit new mothers dealing with mental health issues?
You know, it's funny. I started this podcast, I think 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And it was just my journey of living with bipolar disorder because I'm an actress and I didn't talk openly about my mental health. And I didn't talk about my mental illness because I would say things here and there, and then managers would be like, "Don't talk about it. It's gonna, make you seem like you're a diva, like you're crazy. Don't say these things." And finally, I got so frustrated, and I just got so over it that I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna make a podcast, and I'm gonna start talking about it." And this all kind of happened because I went to this retreat that I was invited to because I had made one video talking about bipolar disorder and living with it. And someone had invited me to a retreat and they were like, "Hey, we're having all these cool influencers and actors and entrepreneurs who are all in the mental health industry or who live with mental illness come together and kind of see what we can do to make some noise, to make some change. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is wild. It's this weekend. Okay, let's go." And I went like by myself to Laguna Beach. I didn't know anyone. And I like went there and met these amazing people that inspired me to start a podcast. And this podcast has had so many different lives, I feel like, in the 5 seasons that I've had, where at first it was I was just in a relationship talking about having bipolar disorder. Then I was married talking about living with bipolar disorder. Then it became a pregnancy podcast on how I was meeting different people who could help me out being pregnant with bipolar disorder. And it's a mom one. And now it's kind of going back to being, you know, a mom slash everyday human being, like getting back to my roots of who I am. But I really encourage people from every stage. There's no relevancy of like, it's not like a Real Housewife podcast where if you go back to season one and you listen, you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, that's old news. We all know this. Like that one got arrested, that one threw a table." Like we know. What's great about the podcast is it's timeless. And if you are in a stage where you want to hear actors who are living with mental illness, go back to season one. Go back to listen to the doctors and professionals. If you're a new mom and you're pregnant and you're scared and you're looking for resources of not even just with mental illness, but with the hypnobirthing, with special chiropractors, with special, I interviewed someone who talked about cord blood banking. I was like, what the hell is that? And I ended up doing it. So there's season 4 for that. If you're a new mom and you just gave birth and you're having postpartum depression, go to season 5. I'm here. I'm with you. I'm living it currently. So I think that that's what's cool. It's different. Not to boost my own podcast, but I think it's cool because you're really living like in a real life time all these different lives that I've lived as like a woman in this world living with a mental illness. And look, you don't have to have a mental illness to listen. Everyone in our life is dealing with mental health. I did a whole season that was going through COVID where I was recording it in my dining room. So we've all lived through something and we're all going through something. We all know someone, whether it's a friend or a family member. And if you could listen to an episode and it could help someone, that's the most important thing. Sharing stories. That's how I started to share my stories, hearing other people share their stories. And I also would like to say, just don't share your story because someone's telling you to. You really have to do it when you're ready because you have to be prepared for people to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to say rude comments. It still happens on the daily basis where people will say, "Oh, you're just crazy. Like you shouldn't be a mom." And these comments hurt. They affect me. And people are, let me be frank, are assholes and are bullies and trolls on the internet. And you have to be emotionally ready to take all that on. But let me tell you, when you share your story, you could save someone's life and you probably will save someone's life. And you'll never know that you saved that person's life because it'll be someone random that found it on a TikTok algorithm. And they're like, I'm going through that. So please, the importance of organic conversations of mental health is how we are changing stigma and how we are breaking that.
Beautiful. Let's talk about support systems. You've talked a little bit about that from your husband to your mom. They're crucial in helping us to
Sure.
manage our mental health. So how can partners, and you've mentioned a few things like your mom's watching your little one right now
Yeah.
and your husband just being so
Yeah.
supportive. So how can our friends, our colleagues, family members best support a new mom
Mm.
who has bipolar disorder in their journey of motherhood and raising the little one?
I think the most important thing you can do, whether you're a mom or you're not, like for someone with mental illness, is just let them know that you love them and you support them unconditionally and that you are always a phone call away. You are always going to show up if they need you. And that whatever you need, you could say to someone, whatever you need, no judgment and no questions asked. Because I think that's the scariest thing, right? Is when you live with a mental illness, you're constantly worried of someone judging you or someone acting like, "Oh my god, you're crazy." Like, "Oh my god, don't talk to them." So to make it normal and make it just be like, "Hey, we're here to support." Like, that's it. I'm always here, no questions asked. I think that's the most important thing. As far as like for a new mom, I think in the first 6 weeks, hey, when I come over to see the baby, it's not like, "Oh, can you fix me food?" Let me bring you food. Let me hold the baby so you can take a shower, you know? Do you need to, go get your nails done? I don't know, something. Let me watch the baby. I think that's more important than clothes even because everyone seems to give clothes. You get so many clothes and you don't know what to do with all the clothes. The first 6 weeks, they're wearing nothing but diapers and a onesie because they keep spitting up on everything. So hold off on the cute little baby clothes the first 6 weeks and really just support a mom by, "Hey, can I have someone come over and maybe give you a massage? Or can I have someone come over and cook you a meal? Or can I drop off a meal? Or can I cook you a meal? Or can I hold the baby and you take a bath or a sitz bath?" I did take so many sitz baths. I didn't know what a sitz bath was before that. And I was like just soaking on the toilet all day long. And I was just like, this is just not the most romantic life right now. So I think moments like that are so important for those who live with mental illness and don't live with mental illness.
Sure. Now, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that you went off your
Mhm.
medication during pregnancy and you're breastfeeding right now,
Yeah.
so you're still off of it. What conversations should new moms have with their healthcare providers in those types of situations.
It's funny because I didn't have a healthcare provider that wanted to talk about this. So it's so interesting. They would say, "Oh, no, no, just stay on your medicine. It's fine." But like no one does the research. So it's tricky. I would say there's a few things. I have a few friends that immediately formula fed their baby because they wanted to get back onto their not let me rephrase that. They didn't want to get back. They needed to get back onto their mental health and mental illness medication because they needed to be in the right set of mind frame, like being a mom. And that was the best decision for them. So I don't tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do as regards to medication. But for me, that was the right thing that I chose. I didn't want to risk being on medication for the pregnancy and afterwards. But it's all about weighing your pros and cons. When you go into a doctor, I think the second that you're pregnant, you say, "Hey, I live with this mental illness." Or if you're trying to have a baby, "Hey, I live with depression and I'm on this antidepressant. Is this the right antidepressant I should be on? Or is there another one? Or would you suggest me weaning off?" I think the only thing you can do with a healthcare provider is be super honest, be open, and be forward and go in there with questions because there's something crazy. Like you only get like 7 minutes with your doctor every time you go in for a checkup. That is like not enough time because that's them getting your blood work, like getting your oxygen, listening to your heart rate. Like that's not enough time. And I don't know for everyone else, but for me, I was so scatterbrained and am still scatterbrained post pregnancy that I would forget my questions. Like I'd have all these questions coming up months before my doctor, and then I'd get in there and be like, I forgot everything. So I ended up having to write everything down so I could be like, okay, here's my 5 main questions that I have. What should I do? What can I do here? What shouldn't I do? And then that's how I created a great bond with my doctor, with my OB. So that's what I would say is always come in prepared and asking the questions and being brutally honest. They've heard it all.
Absolutely. Your platform offers valuable resources and support
Oh.
for those who are navigating these mental health challenges. So, what advice would you give to new moms who may be hesitant to seek help or support for their mental health concerns?
I would say the first thing is no one's going to take away your baby. And I think that that is something that I live with still on the daily of like being fearful of like, well, I live with a mental illness. So someone's going to take my baby away from me because I'm not a good mom. You're an amazing mom. You're kicking ass. Like no matter what anyone tells you, like you are here. You had that baby, whether it was vaginal or it was C-section, you had a human being, okay? You kicked ass. And no one's going to take your baby away for you being honest about what your feelings are. And the thing is some women suffer postpartum psychosis and postpartum depression, and it is debilitating and it is terrifying, and you don't want to open up and share that with the doctor because you're afraid like they're going to take your baby away. That is the most common thing I always hear. It is better for you to be brutally honest and get on the right medication and get the proper help because they're not taking your baby away, but they will take your baby away if you don't get the help and you keep spiraling down. So be open, be honest, know that everyone has dealt with postpartum from psychosis to depression to anxiety. Everyone has experienced a little bit of that. It's never perfect. And if someone tells you it's been perfect, then they're just lying to themselves or they don't remember because it's not perfect. So just don't be afraid and just be brutally open and honest as fast as you can with a healthcare provider.
Okay, I just have two more quick
Yeah.
questions as we round this
Yeah.
out. So, how do you keep it all
I
together?
don't.
All the things, mom life, work life,
I don't.
podcast, family.
I don't. Honestly,
This has been so fun.
I
I
don't.
ask this question on almost every interview, and that is the resounding response, and I just love it.
Oh my
I
God,
love
what
it.
a great question to ask. I absolutely do not have it together. I'm glad that my social media makes it seem like I have it together. It's so funny because I remember when I was a couple weeks postpartum and like every time lady would fall asleep like on my boob and it would be like 3 in the morning and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not going to turn the lights on to read a book. So I started going on TikTok and I would watch all these women. And I'm like, how are these women going on walks with their baby 3 weeks postpartum. They're skinny, they're looking great. And I was over here like crying. I was like bleeding. I was in and out of the hospital. I was so upset. And then I realized like it's all a facade because people would think that I have it together looking at my social media. I don't. But what I do have is I have fun with my baby. And that's what we do. We have just laughs for days. We have fun. And that's what I have going for me. I am editing my podcast myself hours before they come out. Hours before they come out. I'm doing it while she's asleep on my boob because now she crawls out of the playpen. So I can't even put her in the playpen to be like, stay there. So all eyes are on her. I've had multiple episodes that have been fully, completely done. And she comes up to the computer and she's like, ha ha, and presses a button and deletes everything. So, let me tell you, nothing is together, but we're having fun while doing it.
And that's what you're both going to remember.
I
is
listen, I
fun.
sure hope she remembers we're having fun because I'm having a blast.
What is one tip or trick or piece of advice that you'd share with another mama right now?
Ooh, with a new mom, something that I didn't realize is your nipples hurt like a mother when you first start breastfeeding. So please, 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 two things that I always recommend. Always get the silver cups for your nipples. I don't know if you use that, but I used it late in the game and it was a game changer. And I know it's crazy. I would put cabbage on my engorged boobs, cabbage leaves, and it was the only thing that helped. So that's my tip for a new mom. For a mom now, I would say finding that moment of self-care of, the importance of sitting with your child, even if they're running around and, 5 seconds taking those deep breaths for the breath work. Well, breastwork too, but the breath work. And I would definitely recommend that. And you know what? Play music. Babies love music. They love to dance. They love to have a good time. Start playing it since they're in your belly and so forth out. And something that I did that I don't know if this is a tip, but I always sang this one song over and over in my belly to Lady, and then I started singing it as a lullaby, and I still sing it to her, and now she sings it, and it's just something that's, like, really cute that something that to think food for thought, like, find a song, it's cute.
Sweet. Very sweet. Okay, those are all the questions I
Amazing.
had, Al. So, what did I not ask that you
You
wish
asked
that I would
everything.
have?
This was one of the most fun interviews I've ever done. This was so lovely and so great. What would you recommend for me as someone who's about to have a baby? Well, not about, she's only 15 months, but I mean, going into like the 2, 3 year, which everyone is like, it's so tough. My mom was like, it wasn't. I was just living with a mental illness. But other than that, I was a sweet kid. So I'm hoping Lady's going to be the same way. But what is something that you would recommend to someone who has a baby my age, 15 months to 2 years, let's say?
Oh, it's just so magical because it's before they're talking.
Yeah.
And you're so excited. You're so excited when they are talking and they say
Yeah.
those first words. And now little one can carry a full-blown conversation with me. But back back then, I feel like you are doing so many of the things I would already recommend. We love music. We listen to music a lot. Dancing,
Yes.
especially if we're just having or feeling grumpy or whatever. I call it like a 60-second dance party. I'm like, okay,
Sure.
just let's pick a song
Yeah.
and throw it on my phone. And then we just, okay, let's both groove to the
Yeah.
beat and let's dance. Cause how can you be in a bad mood when
You
you're
can't. You
dancing to a good
can't.
song?
No, you
Right.
can't.
And I would say reading. She's learning reading and working on spelling and knows her letters and all of that. She's not reading books quite yet, but she loves it. She loves
Oh,
story time and always wants another book. And that's so I've been reading to her ever since she was a little itty bitty
I
baby
love
before.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. And just hugs, lots of hugs.
lots of
Sometimes
hugs. I
I
know.
just ask her, honey, do you need a hug? And that makes everybody's day better.
Listen, hugs save the world. So I love
They
that.
do. They do.
Oh my gosh.
But
This was such a pleasant surprise of a beautiful interview. Thank you so much.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks once again to Al for making time to speak with me and being a part of Secret Mom Hacks. Al, I so appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to be an open book about your journey and your experience. I know you are going to help a lot of people with your transparency, especially other mamas who might be experiencing the same thing. So thank you once again. Don't forget to check out Al's socials linked in the show notes over at secretmomhacks.com/episode 54. I'm curious what your favorite part of our interview was. I hope you're walking away inspired with tips either for yourself or that new mom you know. If that's the case, please follow me on your favorite podcast platform if you haven't already. Give me a 5-star rating and leave a review sharing your favorite takeaway so far. You can do all of that by going to ratethispodcast.com/secretmomhacks. Don't forget to stop by secretmomhacks.com where you can find transcripts, resources, and more. Stay tuned for next week's episode. And until then, you've got this, mama.